of the many issues up for reconsideration in the wake of the corona crisis must be the role of international organisations and the deference we show them and the dollars we fund them with. The total failure of the EU, for instance, to offer any meaningful assistance to Italy as its hospital system melted down, and Spain too, was a striking demonstration of how much it's been each country for itself when confronted with a deadly threat that respects no borders. Of course, that's not to say that there's been no international cooperation. The explosion of medical papers and podcasts from doctors in the field and the intense networking amongst medical researchers has shown yet again the comparative selflessness of those on the front line in the fight against this virus. It's just that the global solidarity between people working in medicine has no parallel, none whatsoever, when it comes to the lack of cooperation between nations, particularly if one nation helping another might put itself at a disadvantage. At the acute stage of this crisis, it's been every country for itself. And if there has been little or no help to be had from allies, friends or neighbours, there was even less help to be had from supranational or global bodies like the EU and the United Nations. But of all the global bodies that have been utterly ineffectual in this crisis, the absolute front runner of failure has to be the UN's World Health Organization. It was only a month ago, after more than 100,000 cases in dozens of countries and over 4,000 deaths, and a week after Australia, that the World Health Organization even declared there was a pandemic. And today, this very same supposed global leader in health is come out to back the reopening of the wet markets in Wuhan, even though these wet markets are the most likely source of the latest pandemic, just like it has been for pandemics in the past. Said the World Health Organization today, with proper regulation and good hygiene practices, it's possible to have safe food sold in wet markets. I love that term, safe food. Well, the wet market in Wuhan doesn't just involve the killing and cutting up of pigs and chickens on the spot for customers, as we might imagine a wet market to operate. This is an open abattoir, as I'd better describe it, that specialises in the slaughter and trade of exotic animals such as bats, monkeys and pangolins, all supposed delicacies to the Chinese palate. Apart from the current coronavirus, Chinese wet markets have also been thought responsible for SARS and bird flu in recent times. And it's this proximity of humans and exotic animals that makes wet markets the most likely source of new mutant viruses to which we currently have no immunity. Which makes, of course, the World Health Organization's acquiescence in the reopening of this particular wet market so bizarre and even disturbing. How can anybody supposedly dedicated to promoting global health be so blasé about the likely source of a pandemic? Well, let's follow the dollars. We all know that China has been a multi-billion-dollar donor to Ethiopia, which is the nationality of the World Health Organization's current head, a former Ethiopian politician. Aside from being heavily backed by China to assume the position as Director General, his former political party, the very violent communist Tigray People's Liberation Front, also spent millions pushing him to secure this coveted UN post. When he got there, one of his first acts as Director General of the World Health Organization was to make the Zimbabwean dictator and China client, Robert Mugabe, a global ambassador. Now, I'd forgive you at home for thinking at this point I'm making it all up. But sadly, this is all a matter of the public record. And despite China's initial cover-up of the coronavirus, and despite it now trying to censor academic reports on the origins of the virus, this former politician, now head of the World Health Organization, has gone out of his way to heap praise on China's so-called transparency. Again, laughable, if it wasn't true. Now, as you know, in the post-virus world, I think Australia has got to get serious about a whole lot of things. energy, water, manufacturing, and more. But also coming out of this crisis, we must reconsider the standing and value of bodies like the World Health Organization, especially when they've all become, many of them, pawns in China's global power play. What's the point of Australia giving this body $66 million over the past 2 years? What's the point of the US giving them $400 million last year alone if the World Health Organization is little more than a Chinese cat's paw, despite the fact that China is better at manipulating this body than actually paying for it, with China's annual contribution to the World Health Organization scarcely more than what Australia pays. It used to be that global bodies had some level of shared purpose and common effort. Not so much anymore. And given that's the case, surely it's beyond time that the Australian government had a serious rethink about why we provide so much undeserved help and status to bodies that despise our values and that by their actions go against the very purpose for which they were set up for. The World Health Organization is just one. Trust me, I have a long list of others.